Okay, so go ahead and get started. Just wanted to start the live stream. We're live streaming to YouTube, and we will also share the live stream on Facebook. Make sure it doesn't. Okay, so okay. All right. So welcome. This is United Black Community's annual birthday tribute to Malcolm X, OMOWOLE, known to us as Malcolm X, but of course El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. OMOWOLE is his African name. We do this every year, and we generally focus on a particular aspect of the work that he did, what he taught us, and what he was focused on, and what he thought was important for African people. And we do different focuses every year. This year, with everything going on with reparations, it seemed fitting. Many don't know about Brother Malcolm's enthusiasm and preaching about reparations. Yes, back in the early 60s. He recognized that, and this is a paraphrase, but so he recognized that all the wealth that white Americans used to imperialize the world and lord over the world is gained from the backs of the forefathers and the ancestors of African people. 400 plus years of labor with no pay. He recognized that this was a debt, and he spoke of it often. And this is a debt that needs to be paid and must be paid, and must be demanded that it be paid. He spoke of it often, and it's important that we continue that aspect of his work as well. Of course, reparations is much more popular now. He's a man ahead of time, ahead of his time in many, many ways in this aspect as well. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our moderator for this evening, who is Sister KIBIBI. Many of you all know her from the community. Give me 1 second. She is one, you know, I think if she's not one of maybe one of two, probably one of two people that I know that began to really talk about reparations, especially in the DC community. She's been engaged in this work for a very long time. She is currently the co-chair of the DC Metropolitan Area Chapter of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, also known as NCOBRA. She also served in that capacity from 2001 to 2010. She served as female co-chair of the National NCOBRA for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, and also served as a co-chair of the National Legislative Commission prior to her tenure as the national co-chair of NCOBRA. In December 2007, she was the first to testify on the just demand for reparations for descendants of formerly enslaved Africans in America before Congress's Judiciary Committee, chaired by Congressman John Conyers. So you all know her. Without further ado, Sister KIBIBI. Just have to unmute, Mama.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me and inviting us to give this very important program for reparations, because as Baba Kelechi has already stated, this was a matter that Malcolm X was committed to, and so we follow in his footsteps. He was also very active in pulling together people from around the globe who were addressing similar kinds of things for human rights and rights in general for being a self-determining people. So the issue of reparations is also an international struggle. He was also committed to taking our fight to the United Nations. And so we find ourselves here all these decades since then, bringing our issue to the United Nations so that we can lock arms with brothers and sisters around the globe who are also involved in this struggle. I am happy to introduce some very important people in the reparations struggle as far as NCOBRA is concerned. And I would like to deviate. Is Mama MASHARIKI on the call already?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to deviate protocol a little bit because Mama MASHARIKI made it known that she has a family activity that she is committed to, so she will need to leave early. So rather than starting with our national co-chair, Sister KENNISS Henry, Sister KENNISS, may I have your permission, please, to deviate and bring MASHARIKI on first?
By all means, all praises to the Queen Mother.
Okay. So I am pleased to be able to say that I have known Sister MASHARIKI JYWANZA for over 30 some years. And so while introducing her and reading her bio, I'm pleased to say that I have known her through many of the accomplishments that she has had over the decades. MASHARIKI JYWANZA, also known as Queen Mother Owusi Nomasi, has decade-long community organizing experience, founding community-based organizations and citywide even organizations such as Red Beans and Greens Community Food Co-ops, the Indianapolis Kwanzaa Committee for over 30 years, Neighborhood Youth Brigade, and Ujamaa Institute of Cultural Development Rites of Passage Program for over 30 years. And she has served also on the board of the state and local PTA. In 1998, she directed a citywide cultural project with emphasis on Africa and collaborated with and coordinated 30 arts organizations and managed a $850,000 budget for that event. She was part of the delegation to Durban, South Africa in 2001, during which the Holocaust of enslavement was determined to be a crime against humanity and should always have been so. She served as the national female co-chair of NCOBRA, also for 3 terms. And she worked in the reparations movement in general for over the past 30 years. She was installed as Queen Mother in Ghana, West Africa, Volta region in 2007. And she has formed a school in this village to once again demonstrate her appreciation and support for any efforts that our people are making for self-determination. Her commitment to our movement and our people is unwavering. MASHARIKI has, although she is going to have to leave, I would like to have her begin, because what we have on the call today is the past, present, and future of the reparations movement. And so I would like to ask Sister MASHARIKI if she could begin by briefly summarizing NCOBRA's history and our contribution to the movement, and then bring it forward to the Obama presidency and the 2020 presidential primary, where things pretty much exploded. So with that, Queen Mother, I'd like to pass on to you. Queen Mother?
Oh, all right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I am so humbled to be asked to be a part of this distinguished panel and to represent NCOBRA, which is an entity that I have been involved with for well over 30 years.
Mama, could you please lower your camera a little bit so we can see your whole head? Just seeing top of your head. Okay, that's much better. Thank you.
Lower it like this?
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect.
Okay, I can't even see. And please forgive me. I got my wires crossed. My granddaughter is in a national cheerleading competition here in Indianapolis, and I'm at the convention center. She goes on in a few minutes. And so I'm so thankful. Thank you, KENNISS and KIBIBI, for allowing me to say a little bit before I have to leave. But I'd like to first start off by taking a deep breath and giving honor to my mother, father, God, and also to the native peoples on whose land we find ourselves. I also like to start with our ancestors. As we deal with the history of NCOBRA, I was so fortunate to be involved in NCOBRA when Baba Obadeli was still around, when Baba Kalonji was still around, Sister Dorothy, as well as Brother Hannibal. And I'd like to speak a little bit about those ancestors, because as the leadership of NCOBRA that I have just relinquished, and I'm now on the Council of Elders, so much of what I was able to do and focus on had a lot to do with those ancestors and how they guided me. Excuse me. I remember when Baba Imari and Kalanji and General Rashid had a suit, and they filed suit in the courts. Was based on the Japanese suit of gaining reparations. It did not pass. I remember when our when our Legal Strategies Commission, which was huge at one time, also put forth a suit, which of course did not make it through the courts. But NCOBRA has been in the forefront of this reparations movement. I'm glad to see all the various groups that are popping up and joining these efforts. I wish it was better collaboration, but it still puts the name and puts the ideal of reparations on the hearts of our people. And that's what I have always been told was our job, to let our people know that not only reparations due, we are demanding that. I also want to mention Sister Dorothy Benton Lewis, Yawa Sachawan, Queen Mother, who I met in the 70s, and who was talking about reparations at that time. And I had not heard a lot about reparations, but Sister Dorothy had always been in the forefront. She believed that we needed to do internal healing for ourselves, and that we needed to bring in all groups of Black people. And she did her best while she was around to do so. She looked at the sororities, the fraternities, she looked at the churches, and those efforts, have pushed us to where we are today. And then, of course, we have Brother Hannibal Afrique, who has always told us, it's not about us. We got to look 7 generations ahead. And that's what our planning should be about. And I internalized all of this. And that's why I still do what I do. That's why I'm still involved the way that I am. You know, it bothers me that we do not have the unity that we have fought for so many years. But that's not to give up, and it's not to give in. It is to strengthen us, you know, to move forward faster, and to work with our young people, and to get our young people to understand the necessity of reparations. Now in COBRA, as I was saying, in its thrust for HR 40, which was brought to us by Reparations Ray, and please make no mistake about it, it was an in-COBRA effort through Reparations Ray, who was a friend of John Conyers. That's how HR 40 got on the table. And it's still in COBRA effort with collaboration, of course, which is what we need. But I remember those times when we fought very, very hard, and we put the information out here, and we brought in other groups, and we brought in individuals, and people were working at one time in one accord. We have to get back to those times. We really do. And Sister KIBIBI mentioned, you know, the whole Obama era. And interesting enough, reparations as a word began to come from the lips of politicians. And then other people started looking at that. That's why we are where we are today. It's the word has been spoken, but there has not been concrete action to make it happen. And that is our goal. I hope everybody on this call is either a member of NCOBRA, plans to join NCOBRA in our efforts. We still want to push HR 40 as an executive order. I'm sure Sister KENNISS will talk about that some more. But more importantly, what I have said about our ancestors, they have left us with the roadmap. All we have to do is follow. All we have to do is put one foot in front of the other and move forward. Reparations in our lifetime. That was the call of Mama and Jerry. That was the call of Queen Mother Dorothy. Reparations in our lifetime. And it's still achievable. It's achievable if we come together and understand that reparations is bigger than any disputes that we may have with one another. So what do we need to do? We need to understand that reparations is the key. Reparations is important. Reparations is achievable, and reparations are due. We demand, we're not asking anybody, we demand reparations. And Sister KIBIBI mentioned Durban, and we all were there. Many of us were there. And we were very excited that we came out of Durban with understanding from the United Nations that the transatlantic slave trade was a crime against humanity, and reparations were due. What else happened during that time? 9/11. We got back to the States, and whatever went on in Durban became secondary, and people didn't talk about it as much. So we're now at a time where reparations is on the lips of a lot of people. People are beginning to see this might be a reality. And I think it's up to us, those who have been involved, those who understand struggle, to keep it pure. And by pure, I mean that we are fighting for what is ours, not each other. We are fighting for what is due us. We all know the atrocities that have happened to us as a people. We know that. And we need for these young people to understand that. So that's our charge. Brother Hannibal told us it's not about us, 7 generations ahead that we must be planning for. Sister Dorothy has told us Mama and Jerry has told us, reparations in our lifetime. And that's where I would like for us to have an understanding and come to an understanding among each other. It's really not that difficult. And so when we see things that are getting in our way, people that are getting in our way, we still need to move forward. Because as we get closer to this, that's when so many other obstacles get in our way. And they're coming because we're almost there. And so we need to understand that. And in understanding that, we have to put that aside and not let that deter us from our charge. We have been given a charge by our ancestors. We talk about Brother Malcolm. He has given us plenty of charges. The ancestors within the reparations movement and in Cobra, they have given us a charge. So let's all rise to the occasion. Let's take this charge on. And let's save our children. Let's save our children. And I think we can do that. I don't know who's all on the call, but look within yourself. What have you done to push this reparations movement further? What can you do to push it even further? So let's move and let's achieve reparations in our lifetime. Asante Sana.
Asante Mama MASHARIKI, for bringing those very important points to our attention, and for reminding us that no matter what work we are doing in our communities on human rights, civil rights, criminal justice, whatever it is, it can legitimately fall under the umbrella for reparations, because we are about healing and repairing our people for the generations of trauma that we have experienced. So we must never forget that. And have I been talking all this time with, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, were you able to hear that I was speaking?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So I'd like to get back to our lineup and go to the present. We had a really, really good summary of what has happened up to now. And I would like to introduce Sister KENNISS Henry, who is a staunch reparations advocate and who began over 10 years ago in the Washington, D.C. Reparations Study Group and on to the activist group Black Reparations Now. And from there to the Empowerment Research Group, responsible for monitoring and lobbying key federal legislation pertinent to African Americans. KENNISS joined the National Coalition of Black Reparations in America in early 2015, although she had been supportive of our legislative efforts towards HR 40 beforehand. As a member, she was appointed to the National Legislative Commission co-chair and orchestrated a key strategy in the coalition legislative efforts that contributed to the most successful co-sponsorship in history of HR 40. When I was performing that task, we were only able to get it up to 49. Sister KENNISS Henry got it above 200, and she must be applauded. Now, I know she didn't do it by herself, but you need a primary person in the lead to make things happen. And so we are very pleased that she was able to do this for us, and she has continued on in that vein. And I had a conversation with her earlier this evening, and I had not been able to connect with her. And then she reminded me of something very important, and that is, when you get involved in this movement, you don't have time to breathe. And people, if you're really working hard, you almost burn yourself out. Not almost, you will burn yourself out because there's so much work to be done. And that is particularly important now as we are seeing work being done across the country and internationally. So Sister Kennis, I would ask you to talk to us about, first of all, your phenomenal work on the legislative front, and let us know what we're witnessing nationwide with the various state and municipal task force bills that are cropping up across the country, and the recently introduced reparations resolution. Sister Kennis?
Sure. Thank you so much for the space. And I will ask permission of an elder to move forward with my presentation. I assume I have that permission, so I will move forward.
You have permission.
Thank you. There are several things going on with reparations, and who knew that 10, 15 years ago, we would be where we are today. There are probably over 100 local reparatory justice movement efforts going on, but I will start with the federal side. HR 40 currently has about 89 co-sponsors. The Senate Companion Bill has 25 co-sponsors. One of the things that's going on with HR 40 right now is our bill sponsor, excuse me, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has decided that she may want to become mayor of Houston. So she is engaged in a run for the mayoral position in Houston. And she has not dropped the ball as far as HR 40 is concerned. I was on a call with her one day last week, and she has indicated her commitment to continue to drive the force behind getting HR 40 where it needs to be. One of the problems, however, is that next year is a presidential election year. We don't know what the footprint will look like, the congressional footprint will look like after 2024. So we have been working tirelessly to get the president to issue an HR 40 executive order. Not sure that's going to happen. He sent a message, or he gave a message via his press conference secretarial person that his decision is he would prefer to see HR 40 go through the legislative process. That actually is a bit disheartening, because for someone who's been in Congress for all of the decades he was in Congress, I'm sure that he saw, or he sees, HR 40 cannot move in the way we need it to move without his support in the form of an executive order. So we're still hopeful. We still have our HR 40 coalition reaching out to the White House to see if we can change his mind, turn that around. We have community groups that called into the White House asking that there be an HR 40 executive order. While that's happening, and I'll come back to it, an amazing congressperson in Congresswoman Cori Bush has introduced a resolution, an HR 40 resolution. One of the issues with the resolution, while it gains support and calls attention, it's not codified, meaning it's not signed into law, but it does give opportunities for there to be the continuation of the call to attention for us to get HR 40 and reparations passed at the federal level. I'm going to jump around a little bit as far as like local efforts are concerned. The most recent effort, I believe, is Baltimore City Council signed legislation to have a local reparations effort. And what they're doing is similar a bit to what's happening in Evanston. They're going to use cannabis sales revenue, and they're going to focus on doing some reparative efforts in communities that were devastated by the drug trafficking, to see what can be done to repair some of those communities. Also, Washington, D.C. has a local effort going on. Boston. One of the ones that is very notable for us, the Detroit Reparations Task Force stood up their commission a couple of weeks ago. I am honored to be able to say that our very own Dr. Joanne Watson is on that task force. Also, we have another member of NCOBRA who is serving as a member at large on the Detroit Reparations Task Force, and that is attorney Anita Bell. I spent a few days this week in New York working with the body of elected officials there, trying to help them find their way through. Interestingly enough, there are some things going on in New York. On the Senate side, they have a bill that has about 23 co-sponsors. However, on the House side, there is no bill yet. And they will close session on June 8th. So we have been working relentlessly to try and get the two groups together. We still need about 15 co-sponsors on the Senate side, and we need to get a bill on the House side. The issue on the House side is that more than one person has a bill they want to introduce. House Speaker has indicated that he is only going to issue a number for one bill. One of the bills and the bill sponsor wishes to have the bill more like what the bill in California looks like, AB 3121. If that happens, then we literally have to start from scratch because, as you know, the two bills have to mirror each other in order for it to move forward. And we've already been working on the Senate side with a bill that has about 22 co-sponsors. So I'm not sure what the outcome will be there. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this coming week, we're going to be engaging in a lot of community engagement, hoping that the community can weigh in and help to get this body moving forward on one track. Excuse me. In Maryland earlier this year, there was a bill, House Bill 0875. It was presented as a compensatory bill. It had not been properly vetted, and we were able to convince the bill sponsor to withdraw it. As far as Congresswoman Cori Bush's legislation is concerned, there are 5 main points to it. And again, it has, the last time I checked, there are about 10 co-sponsors on it. So there's a lot of work that we have to do to up the number of co-sponsors on her resolution. Sorry, excuse me. Too much talking, I think. So a couple of the high points of the Congresswoman's bill, I'm going to read them. It recognizes the federal government's responsibility to provide reparations in all necessary forms. I would like to say we worked on this resolution for quite some time. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the early ones to weigh in on her efforts to craft this resolution. Again, recognizing the federal government's responsibility to provide reparations in all necessary forms, to include financial compensation, to rectify ongoing harms resulting from violations by the United States government to Black people and their human rights, to be self-determination and freedom from discrimination, in addition to other necessary remedies. The next point of her resolution, it supports the enactment of other vital reparatory justice legislations, to include H.R. 40. So Congresswoman Bush actually acknowledges that H.R. 40, which is the bill and can be codified into law, is still necessary, and we still have to work on it. And resolutions apologizing for slavery without limiting clauses and cases. Acknowledges the significance of and the momentum brought by legacy organizations, as well as additional grassroots and national organizations leading the modern day reparations movement. And I want to just put a pin in this for a minute. One of the topics of discussion in New York has to do with discussions about the momentum of legacy organizations and what their role should be, not be, as far as the legislative process to get their reparations task commission stood up. And interestingly enough, there have been some major discussions. And in New York, it's just like H.R. 40, stand up the commission and then set out to negotiate and get the things that you want on the table so that you can decide what it is you're going to move forward on or what it is you're not going to move forward on. Other points as far as Congresswoman Cori Bush is concerned, encourages the creation of local, state, and federal initiatives to identify sources of reparations. So she's actually looking forward and down the road because she's identifying or wants to be able to identify sources of reparations, demands arising from chattel slavery and its longstanding impact on Black people. And another point that she has in her resolution is it honors the lives and legacies of those named and unnamed whose lives were stolen by the institution of chattel slavery and other forms of state-sanctioned violence in the United States. And she goes on to say the United States cannot genuinely reckon with the legacy of the enslavement of Black people unless it rectifies the material inequities that legacy has created. Join the resolution to express, so she's asking that folk join the resolution to express their support for her efforts. There was a call for support from organizations to come and stand with her when she introduced her resolution at her press conference. There were over 125 organizations that had signed on to support her resolution for H.R. 40. Other local efforts include the Philadelphia local chapter of NCOBRA. They have been working again to get a local reparations task force stood up in Philadelphia. An amazing amount of work has been done around it. So we're sort of just waiting to see where that goes and what, if anything, still needs to be done. A fledgling effort in South Florida. Again, the NCOBRA local chapter in South Florida is working to make a presentation to the local elected officials seeking to stand up a local reparations effort in Miami-Dade County, South Florida. I think that is at a high level what's going on as far as reparations is concerned across the country.
Thank you very much, Sister Kennis, for that. And as everyone can see, there's a lot of work that has been done. A lot of work still needs to be done. And Sister Kennis, before you end, can you give us some tasks that we can perform?
Always. I have a group in St. Mary's Parish. Every week they make phone calls to the White House. They know the number by heart, 202-456-1111. And their ask is always the same. We need an executive order from President Biden so that we can get HR 40 passed and get reparations. There is no reason not to continue to bombard the White House hotline. If you prefer to send emails, but that's the one thing that rises to the top. Because if we don't stay on top of the president, he will think that we aren't serious. And if we are serious, then we have to make a lot of noise. Also, we need to encourage our elected officials to support Congresswoman Cori Bush's resolution for HR 40. And indeed, as you heard, there is support, there's language incorporated into her resolution that speaks to the need to get HR 40 over the finish line. Because we have about 18 months, we really need to have President Biden immediately, today, tomorrow, whenever he's back in the White House, he needs to give us an executive order. Why? Because the HR 40 commission is for 18 months. We have to get the commission stood up and we have to start work and hopefully be done before he leaves office at the end of 2024 or a couple of days into 2025 until the swearing in takes place. There is no more time, which is why from last year, early last year, we have been advocating and lobbying for the president to give us an executive order. Understand, and I'm sure you all know this, presidents sign executive orders all the time. It's not an anomaly. It's not something that, ooh, if he did it, it would be the first time ever. And just real quickly, I want to give you a historical reference. In 1891, 11 Italian Americans were lynched in New Orleans. The Italian government was livid. They threatened to shut down all communications with this country and a barrage of other things. At that time, the president was President Benjamin Harrison. He sort of prided himself on being, a president who had great international relationships. In 1892, President Benjamin Harrison decided that he had to do something to smooth out the relationships between Italy and America. On his signature, not a legislative process, not going back and forth to Capitol Hill every day, not calling, not doing social media blitz. On his signature alone, President Benjamin Harrison gave the families of those 11 Italian Americans who were lynched in 1891, a time when there were about 195 persons of African descent who were also lynched that year. In 1892, President Benjamin Harrison gave those 11 families $25,000. That year, the same number of persons of African descent were lynched again, somewhere around 200. Not only did he give those families $25,000 each, and I checked that $25,000 today would be worth $724,000. President Benjamin Harris decided that that $25,000 was inadequate. He needed to do more. And if you haven't, I'm sure you know this, but if in fact you've forgotten, to top it all off, President Benjamin Harrison gave this country a national holiday in Columbus Day. So when we asked President Biden to give us an executive order, we're not doing anything that has not been done before. On your signature, President Biden, give us an executive order for HR 40. All we're asking for is to stand up a commission. President Benjamin Harrison, not only did he, on his signature, go beyond an executive order, he put a dollar amount on it. I just have one more thing to say historically. Nearly 100 years beyond that, the Japanese Americans who worked tirelessly lobbying and advocating for reparations got $5,000 less than the Italian Americans in 1892 of $25,000. So please, 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 if you have not done it, or if you've done it and you've sort of fallen off, get back on track, call the White House, tell your friends to call the White House, tell their friends to call the White House. And the number is, I know it by heart, 202-456-1111, and ask President Biden to please, please, please give us an executive order for HR 40. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Kennis. I want to move very, very quickly. We have so far gotten the past and the present perspective. I'd like to now go to the future, and that is Sister ALETA TOURE. Sister Toure was first introduced to N'COBRA through Baba Chokwe Lumumba during her work with the Camp Kumzikyo and the Malcolm X grassroots movement under Baba Ahmed Obafembe and Mama Sanovia Muhammad. ALETA has been very, very active in the California efforts for their work on Bill AB 3121, which is the California Reparations Task Force. And she has a very good track record with being able to organize and mobilize young people in her area, actually putting boots on the ground. And we've heard that we are constantly reminded that if we do not have young people in the room, our organizations are dying. And so we are very happy to have Sister ALETA on the program this evening. And Sister ALETA, I'd like for you to wait until towards the end for me to circle back around for you to announce the upcoming reparations or the upcoming N'COBRA annual conference that will be taking place in your area. So if you could just focus your attention, please, on the work that you are, on the work that you are doing in the California area, and how we can learn from your example with mobilizing young people in this area as well.
Sure thing, thank you. First of all, Nkosi Sigelele Africa, Malapakaniso Pandoayo, Izwe Mitando Zoyetu, Nkosi Sigelele. It's been important to me to say in the tongue of our motherland, a language outside of America, outside of the English language that's been given to us. This has been a tradition a lot of us are taking since the pandemic, because we've been introduced that in the indigenous of this country, they always give salute to first their own. And in this reparations movement, I find it important that we to do the same. Nkosi Sigelele means God bless Africa, always the head of what we're doing. I also want to say KUZALIWA to Malcolm X. This is his birthday. I'm glad and humbled to be here and going after the two that have just spoken. I think it's very important that I am grateful for being a part of this because of some of the ancestors and elders that were a part of reparations, like Baba Chokwe, like Hannibal Afrique, who was a part of Camp Humziko, who really stared in me because of raising a young Black boy, the importance of rites of passage. And in that dialogue and in that connection is how I am here today. So I want to first give that homage to really understand that that teaching is what I'm hoping to bring in this group that is on my shirt here called God Reparations, which is a youth program in California. But we are not limiting it to California because our biggest thing right now is using these tools to engaging youth, like a swag shirt, right? That says instead of got milk, got reparations, using the arts and other technology to get the young people in the communities that we are in 58 counties for us in California. And I do have a picture of how we pass that information on in our barbershops, in our beauty salons, in our soul food restaurants, and then in HUD properties, and then how we also walk into the encampments. And then teaching that to other chapters is our goal eventually of NCOBRA. So that way it's about passing that same type of synergy of young people to other cities where we can all win, where all of us in 50 states of this country anyway, we can bring about a new tactic, a new strategy to engage and it to be intergenerational. I think the biggest part of our young people, our organization, is that the 5 pillars that you have, which is criminal punishment for the first one, this is some of the things that we're using, right? How do we make it accessible and visual? Because people are very visual, that, like light, short synopsis, bringing this into the hood, giving this to a young person who knows what it's like to have been arrested because of cannabis, right? And then we talk about how they're still arrested. And then we talk about how we have the highest numbers of incarceration in the country besides Texas. So this is a tactic, right? And then the second principle or 5 injury areas, I should say. So the first is criminal punishment. The second one being education. So that for us may look like this, showing how NCOBRA has visually turned and gone from, maybe a couple chapters to now the Northwest and Northeast, and visually showing these cards that gives those principles and injuries on the back. And taking those from education, when we say health and wellness, I teach mindfulness and meditation. So our young people learn what is it to have acupuncture when we bring our acupuncture chairs into a freestyling hip hop session, right, in the park. So it's not only youth that are there, but moms with their children, elders who are homeless, right? And we show in our visuals, this is one from Marin City that we did a listening project, the healing elements of prayer, meditation, and all of those remedies, which is again, the third injury of NCOBRA. And then the peoplehood and the nationhood for us is this principle or injury that really talks about how do we lift up those voices? To have a peoplehood or a nationhood, that means, yes, what I love to hear on what KENNISS said is that every day those sisters in St. Mary Parish, those people that are calling St. Mary's Parish in the White House, are doing something of lifting up their voices together. And I think that is what we're trying to do more, is that when we go into these 58 counties, what does that look like? Where we have a clipboard, we have these little swag we give out, and then we have song and music And then that becomes a conversation because the elder says, oh my gosh, they want to sit and listen to me talk about what was the racism or the thing that happened to me in my life when the police stopped me, or I got kicked out and I had Section 8, but they took it away. These youth want to talk to me about that. And so therefore the conversation becomes a peoplehood and a nationhood because the youth get to learn from the elders, just like we did in an African village, right? And what happened to us before the dollar, when the dollar circulated 7 times in a community before Black flight. And so we are bringing about these elements where we're trying to say that the element of peoplehood and nationhood of this 5 injury areas is to be amongst the people, to be with the people. Block by block is what we say, street by street, and hood by hood. And so the 5th injury, which is wealth and poverty, I wanted to show this last one. And that is this, well, I did show a little bit of the others, but this is knowing what just like you have this little card we have, and these are tiny ones, but we give them out in the community. We have another one that talks about the cheat sheet. And so when you come to a barbershop or a beauty salon, and also for us being on the street where the Obama phones are, right? There's always a line. If y'all know, check it out next time you're in your community, the Black community. You'll see a line of people, especially now, because there is such a need, right? Since COVID, people are really starting to feel more so the need for housing and healthcare and jobs. And so what we do is go near the barbershops as well as where they get the phones. We put our tent out, put our table down. We have information about got reparations, and we give these cards. And so this talks about wealth and poverty, right? Because we're meeting them where they're at. When you meet a community where they're at, the first thing that we teach, and this is, thank goodness we did this, young people along with attorney Nkechi's Taifa, right? But we are having these definitions of what is reparations. Most people here in California with AB 3121 legislation don't even know what reparations means. And that's 58 counties, right? In my county, which is Contra Costa, Black people don't even know what that means. So that means it's heady. It's for the politicians, which is important. It's for the academic, which is important. But let's bring that now to the grassroots, where they also can be engaged. And so we tell them about the definition and we discuss it. The young people are sitting and listening, but also learning how to be organizers, which is a tactic that has really been known when the Black Panthers is around. But when we talk about our nonprofits to go into the streets, there is a piece that we still have to do that. And if the elders can't do that, making those phone calls at night to all those people we spoke to at night, right, to get their information, the ones that were so freely wanting to share with us. And then we talk about the apology. We talk about the recognition. We talk about the redress. We talk about the accepted norms of cessation and guarantee of non-repetition, restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and rehabilitation. So these are cheat sheets. And we got this idea actually when Trayvon Martin was around and I lived in Florida. I went to the United Nations with Trayvon Martin's mother. One of the biggest things that kids knew in my neighborhood to do, because we were helping Trayvon Martin's friends and schools and other people, was that the kids can come to my door, knock. And I knew it was a big thing when they would knock and say, hey, Miss Aleta, can I have one of those cards to know your rights? My friend right here wants a copy to put it in his pocket, just in case the cops stop us. How can we be that accessible in the community with reparations is what we're trying to say and what our youth are doing. And that means we, as the organizers, as the elders that have taught me, I am grateful for Ahmed and Mama Zenobia, because we had a van at the Malcolm X Center that I ran and went to the HUD properties. Kids knew us. They didn't know us just because us doing reparations and Kwanzaa programs. They knew us because they knew they can talk to us, come to our door. And that way, the work that we're doing here with HR 40, the work that we're doing here locally, statewide for AB 31 is connected also to that grassroots work that we have to do, which is a lot more work because it's door to door, it's block by block, but it doesn't mean that it can't be intergenerational. And for us, that means having one of the things I think when I hear how KIBIBI, you mentioned what's for the future. I hope for my generation and the youth that we're having in this in the reparations movement, that we learn some processes of doing it more intergenerational, meaning the elders and the youth in the villages of Africa, 52 countries in Africa, right, had a dialogue. And so because of Black flight, and because of the wealth gaps, we don't always get to just sit with each other and know this wisdom that I heard even today, besides on our Zoom calls, right? But how do we engage maybe in our schools, in our community? And so I think that training of that history will be coming from the elders, the history, but the youth would teach us about how to have new strategies of democratic processes, which is very prevalent right now. And I'll talk about that later at when we talk about the convention. So I'm grateful to be here and grateful to lean in to including now supports of how to work with the young people, how to engage them, how to have t-shirts and swag and even dancing inside, and even hip hop and poetry. One of the things I just saw recently was and it's still in my mind from this conversation, is how Tupac's mom really was very important in the movement. And she used poetry, and she was also very eloquent. But with Tupac, he took it a step further. And it was because she did use that fun stuff. She didn't make it that she deterred the kids from not wanting to be in the movement. She actually wanted them by making it fun and saying, this is freedom, this is love, this is high-powered energy. And I think sometimes that is the piece I think we can learn from each other, is how do we make it still relevant and fun so that we can find folks like Tupac and young people to carry it on in a way that when we are gone, like Chokwe has done for me, it will be passed down because I believed in that same passion that he gave to me. So I'm grateful, and I'm looking forward to talking further later about the convention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Aleta. And as you can see, we've got a lot to learn. I see another one of my sisters from Chicago, Mama Sarah, and you know that young people do not want to sit in a room meeting for weekends long as we used to do. So I'm glad to see, Sister Aleta, that you are out and engaging young people. Last, I'd like to introduce Brother WAUTELLA Ibn YUSUF, who is the current male co-chair for the DC chapter of NCOBRA. And he's also the co-chair of the National NCOBRA Information and Media Commission. And he's also chair and curator of the NCOBRA Archive and History Project. And he's a member of the NCOBRA National Board of Directors. And Brother WAUTELLA, if you can give an update on what is going on in the DC area, since many of the people who are on the call are local, which extends that conversation about how people can get involved. And also any perspective that you would like to provide about where we are today in terms of legislation, how we really need to view it, and things of that nature. So I'd like to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Sister KIBIBI. Greetings, everyone. Peace and blessings. First, I want to recognize that this day of celebrating, recognizing Malcolm X means a lot to me. Malcolm X is the one that pointed me in the direction that I'm in now, in the movement. At 18 years old, I read his speeches, which eventually led to me joining the nation and other movements that help us develop as a people, and still working on it. Also with that comes this discussion of reparation. I didn't know it at the time, but Malcolm and the Nation of Islam was the first that gave me an introduction to the idea of what is owed to us as a people from this government, from white folks. On the back of every Muhammad Speaks newspaper, it listed what the Muslim wanted. And one of the things was reparation. They didn't call it that, but when they were asking for land and for monies for at least 25 years out into the future, clearly was reparation. That speech from when Elijah Muhammad revealed that platform, it was here in Washington, D.C. I can't remember the exact year right now, but it was in the late 40s or early 50s. He came and gave an address here in D.C. and he laid out what the Muslims wanted. And that part was included. So Washington, D.C. has a very important role, in my opinion, for the reparation movement beyond and COBRA coming into existence, but also looking at its location, where we are, how that everything that happens in Washington, D.C. to a certain level, it is known around the world and impact the world. So it placed D.C. and COBRA here in Washington with a special responsibility. So we call upon the citizens that are here in the metropolitan area, African people, African descent specifically, to support in COBRA, support the movement, and to understand that once reparation really happens, because the ultimate goal is to bring the federal government to task. All these things is happening out in the state, local level, very important. But our real target is this White House and Capitol Hill. Bring the government that has the cash, that made the laws, that held our people for hundreds of years to even build the buildings that they're having the government in today. We here in this metropolitan area cannot sit on the sideline. It's too important. And COBRA was born here in DC in the late 80s, by 1987, the first meetings we had, Rhode Island Avenue, for those who live here. It happened, what, Majestic Eagle building on road that used to be up on Rhode Island Avenue. Bobby Imari Obadeli called us together, organizations that said we need to organize, and this was following the Japanese receiving their reparations. They said, we can't sit quiet. Of course, we know, for those around DC, those in the cultural nationalist community, the Republic of New Africa was very, very strong here at that time, very, very strong. So it was a fertile ground for us to say, okay, we know that we were rightful to do this, but we can't do it alone. Farrakhan came, he gave a great, great speech before even the organizing in COBRA. It wasn't about in COBRA, but it was also addressing how that we as a people should stand up for reparation. And out of that, some of these things are being collected in COBRA archive material, and we'll be sharing it with the public. But out of that, the point being is that they recognize that Washington, D.C. is a critical place. And we still recognize Washington, D.C. as a critical place for this movement, not just for the Africans in America, but when we raise the issue of the injustice that happen to African people across the world, we're also speaking for Africans, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in Africa, that are also being suppressed by the same systems for hundreds of years. So we have a special job here. I don't think that it's just by happening to be that Bobby Mara used to live in the city, Baba Kalanji Olusegun. These are founding members of NCOBRA. Mama Nia, who all of us know, who for years walked around carrying cards and flyers and what have you, inviting people to come to reparation. All this, Queen Mother Dorothy Lewis, all these powerful reparation people coming out of this city. We can't sit down. We owe too much of a debt to be blessed to have those people come before us and educate us, to just see this as this is just a passing thing. It is not a passing thing. Reparation to me is the most important movement. I'm talking about African Black reparation. I ain't just talking about general reparation. I'm speaking specifically for reparation for the crimes that were committed against African people. It's the most important movement that we have. Why? Because there's two parts to it, not one. We only mainly hear about one part, and that's about the money. What are we entitled to? What are they going to give us? The most important part of the reparation movement is the recovery, the nationhood part that NCOBRA have in the injury area. How do we recover ourselves as a people? All the movements we had before us, what we talking about, everything we did to liberate ourselves, everything we did from Harriet Tubman to you name it, Frederick Douglass, all this was reparation work that was targeted at how do we overturn the condition that we live in? How do we restore our human possibilities? How do we restore our womanhood, our manhood, as we had before we were stolen, brought here, and broken down to be just work animals, more or less. Even though I know that sounds strong, but now a lot of discussion we have is mainly focusing on racism. This to me is the bloodline of this sickness. It's just the bloodline, racism. Racism made the whole system possible, but you must, as Malcolm said, you got to deal with the root. Every reparation discussion must raise the injustice of our ancestors. These are three major reasons why we should push this movement. Reparation movement give us a chance to demand justice and recognition for the ancestors that were slaughtered, murdered, raped. It gives us a chance to give voices to our own ancestors' suffering. They don't want to hear that. You can talk about racism all day, they listen to you. But if you start talking about Syria, their crimes, they have a problem with that. The next, the justice, recognition to the ancestors is our first point of doing this. It is a spiritual thing as well as a physical, political thing. It's not just a political thing. We have an obligation to do that. The second thing is that this movement gives us a chance to create resources and opportunity and security for future generations. Not just now. I know everybody talking about when I might get a check. This thing's a lot deeper than that for those that understand it. We, the old heads who have been in this movement so long, is our obligation to teach this type of understanding to this younger generation that just keep hollering about a check. We can't sit on the fence and just say, well, the youth are doing their thing. We must give a philosophy, a grounding in this movement so they would know what they're entitled to, what they must be fighting for, and it's more than a check. Most important is self-recovery. Reparation for me is seeing it as that it is how we repair the damage, the harm. The harm was from the beginning 100 years ago. So those who, like I said, once again, those who have fought this system, regardless, throughout this 100 years, they're working in a reparation process, whether they call it that or not. The liberation movement for me is a reparation process. Get to the restitution side, the money, the resources that those who create must pay. Not they might pay, they must pay, because we're not going to stop demanding after we're going, our children will demand it, because those resources are needed for our recovery process. What we must do, no one can make us whole. No one can repair. We must be our own we must be our own doctors. We must heal our own illness, but their resources that we are entitled to, we must demand it. They can't fix us. We must use it correctly. The youth that's out there in the street, well, I don't understand this. They should think I might get a car. I might get a house. I don't blame them. It's our job to make them understand. So coming back to the chapter, this is why the chapter is so important. For us in corporate chapters around the country, what Aleta was just talking about is very important work. How do we get out in the community and educate our people to do what their worth is, what they're entitled to? If not, they'll take anything they offer them. Our politicians will sell us out. Our money-grabbing certain leaders that don't take it seriously, looking to fill their pocket, they will all benefit. And our ghettos will still be the ghetto. They will give a few pennies here and there, a little program, a little community center or whatever, and say that's reparation. It is not. This is not what we're struggling for. And COPE for more than 30 years has not been on the front line to try to get a recreation center. So I'm not gonna go on and on because I know there's other people coming, but this subject is much deeper than people think. And I encourage people to join the chapter, to join our listserv. DC and COPE, we have a listserv, we send information all the time, as well as join national in COPE, not just local in COPE, join national in COPE. And the third part of why we do this, I spoke of the ancestors, I spoke of the unborn, the generation that's coming. We, the self-healing part, the living, this is the third important part. We heal ourselves in struggle and resistance and standing up as woman and man, confronting the criminals, changing our practice of behavior of negative to positive. This is Bobby Morrow Videla often talked about how he wanted these institutions. I forgot how many billions of dollars he said, but it was laid out He understood that we have to have our own institutions to re-educate ourselves, to teach culture back to our people. That's what I'm saying. It's much more. Our ancestors had a lot more in mind than just trying to get some money from someone. This is very important. We understand that each injured party, even the brothers and sisters on the corner doing drugs, what have you, each injured party has a right to say what they need to be healed. So I don't fight against those who don't necessarily have the vision that I'm talking about. They have a right to state what they feel their claim is. We have an obligation to help teach them to broaden that view and understand how deep the damage is. And by just getting the house doesn't transform their mind, doesn't change the behavior necessarily in the community of drugs and crime. We got to talk about changing processes. The money can only help if we're wise and use it correctly and don't allow the money grabbing people that want to jump out front and buy Cadillacs to take over the movement. This is why the nationalist, cultural nationalist community, we have an obligation in this. For those that want to repatriate, those who want to go back to Africa, they have that right. Those who want to stay here and hopefully get a better government job, they have a right to seek what they want to seek. But we have to be able to make those choices clear that we have those choices. And each individual really evaluate their own life and look at what is most important for them and their families to overturn the injuries that we have endured for hundreds of years. Most don't even know why they're hurting. All they know is that they're hurting because they woke up in the dark room and don't know how they got in the room, so to speak. And this is what the knowledge does, what we're talking about. We first must go back to the root, like Malcolm talked about, and say, what are the injuries? How did we get in this dark room so we know how to get out of it? But if we start off saying we're only talking about racism and reparatory justice, and we're just trying to get some more housing, the rest of it, that's important. I'm not trying to stop that discussion. All I'm saying is that we have to understand the discussion much deeper than that. We cannot allow, my last point, we cannot allow the politicians and others to use this as a political ball to hustle. We cannot allow that. The nations cannot sit quiet after all this work we have put into this movement. We cannot sit quiet. Last point, this is it. Queen Mother Dorothy Benton Lewis told me and others about her experience of working the movement for reparations in Alaska. And she warned us and told us that after they worked so long, so many years, and they was doing it for, I think primarily for the natives, for the indigenous people there, with the indigenous people reparation movement. She was working with the NAACP. While working on that, just like with us in the beginning, people laughed at that and said it would never happen. Y'all wasting your time and blah, blah, blah. Here we are almost 35 years later, the president discussing it, everybody talking about it, university, everybody see, oh, this might happen. So now we see all these people run to the forefront and say, I'm representing the movement. They're all 501c3. Give me the money, I got it. You know what I mean? The point is this. Queen Mother told us that this is what happened there to them, that the people who did all that hard work, that the politicians ran out front and reaped the benefits from it. With her warning, please, let's take steps to try to make sure we're not fighting against people. All we're simply saying is we must hold people accountable. We can't be quiet and just wait and see what happens. When these bills come out, when the task force come out, when these things, we have to have a voice there. We can't just wait and see what they give us. We must be clear, and only with the proper information and education can we be clear about what we must demand and insist upon, not only from white folks, but from those who may attempt to sell us out. Thank you. Asante Sana for your time.
Thank you so much. And with that, Baba Kalechi, you got the floor again.
Gabo Mama, so let's bring everybody together and you can have the question and answer for them. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So
and any one of the people who have been part of the panel can chime in to respond to the questions and answer, to give answers.
Yeah, bro. I'm gonna add them.
Now I am not savvy enough to go back and forth and see where the questions are. So can you help with that, Bob?
Baba WAUTELLA.
Yes.
I think she's referring to you.
Oh.
No, I was asking either one of you. I'm not sure.
We don't have any questions Okay.
There's one
Baba
hand
tell us
that's
to see the
raised.
chat though. You can see the chat, right, Baba?
Yes, I can. There are no questions that I see in the chat at this time, but I do see a hand raised. Kathleen Anderson.
There are two hands, one waving and one raised.
Okay.
Baba Kuumba has been waving his hand also.
Your mic is mute, Kathleen. Kathleen, your mic is muted.
You're right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm Kathleen Anderson from Amherst, Massachusetts. I'm the female co-chair of the New England chapter of INCOBRA. And I just wanted to make a note that Amherst, Massachusetts is the second municipality in the country, the first municipality in the state of Massachusetts to award reparations. And the next city to us, Northampton, Massachusetts, is currently working on a reparations agreement with their community. So I wanted to make those known because Boston is trailing behind us, and often they get recognition that that needs to be corrected. So I just wanted to make that known. That next to Evanston, Illinois, Amherst, Massachusetts is the second municipality in the country to award reparations. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you so
Mama
much, Sister
Kenneth,
Kathleen.
Mama Kenneth, can you turn on your video so I can add you to the screen with the other speakers?
Sorry, I was multitasking. My apologies.
So now I see another, Brother Mama, did you have, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. I'm as a part of the United Black community that organized this program today, and I'm asking in Cobra and United Black community and other interested individuals to come together after this forum and come up with a list of tasks that we could give our people to do. I had some good suggestions from Sister Atia TOURE.
ALETA.
Yeah. I met her in February, and Sister KENNISS, and calling the White House. I think we need to bombard beyond means every day, every second. Thousands of people calling that number, demanding that he sign this executive order.
My brother, I agree with you. I get real passionate about it, and I am an instrument of the board. So I try to gingerly couch when I make a request, but I'm with you. I'm ride or die, do or die.
Hey, so these are small things that we could do. I mean, you don't have to leave your house. You can, you know, so these little steps that we could take that
Yes, sir.
make a difference, but collectivity is the key. I want to also thank INCOBRA for all the years and all the work that INCOBRA has done over the years. WAUTELLA, you spoke about Rhode Island Avenue. That was the Majestic Eagles up on Rhode Island Avenue. The Dudley building is right around the corner from where I live here on Rhode Island. The building is not functioning as that the way it was back in the day, but the building is still there, owned by Mr. Dudley.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's still there. And I had talked with, we had a brief meeting yesterday with KIBIBI and Kalashi yesterday, and I mentioned to them the question. Did you get the question that I wanted to ask KIBIBI? If not, I'll ask.
Go ahead and ask the question, Baba.
You're muted.
The question, if I remember correctly, and maybe Mama Kenneth can, Sister Kenneth can respond to that, and that is, how are states and municipalities confronting the issue of whether reparations can be legitimately awarded if there is the point that the Constitution will not allow race-specific bills.
Let me say real quick what happened. The lady on Fox News was repeating this over the interview that, hey, it's impossible to happen because it's race-based, and race-based is for reparations is unconstitutional. And I said to myself, well, how did the Japanese get it? How are the Jews who got reparations, how did they get it? I mean, come on now. So can somebody answer that, please? Thank you.
I'd like to take a stab at that because it was actually something Baba said when he said, what are some tasks that we can do? I'm going to put this in the chat first to answer it. Baba, you said you're from Rhode Island?
No, Rhode Island Avenue.
Oh, you're in DC.
Yeah. WAUTELLA had
Okay.
mentioned the place where they used to, where meetings was held on Rhode Island Avenue. I don't think he remembered the name of the place. I was just giving him a little information there.
Sure, thank you. So what I see is I listed something, and I did talk about this when I did come to DC. We're doing 58 counties with this box. And I say this box, and I love the fact that you mentioned how it will be hard and it may be difficult. And, you know, what did the Japanese Americans do? In speaking with the Japanese Americans, they're saying here in California, right? Because they did receive it here in our state. They're saying what we're doing as far as the grassroots effort is what they did. So what I wanted to say is I was hoping to make it a little playful or fun is everyone that is watching, that's listening, put the number or the name of your state into the chat real quick, if you can do that for me. And the reason is I'm going to answer the question this way. We have 58 counties. So going into 58 counties, the first thing we're asking for is to do that database collecting. The second thing is we're getting a proclamation from what? 58 counties. So that means one in my county. A proclamation is what? Just saying acknowledgement, right? Because when we're talking about reparations, we got to first let them know we acknowledge or give an apology. When we do that for every state, I don't see anyone's putting in their state yet, but please do that for me, just to entertain this conversation, this solution, is that once we are, since we're doing the federal and we're doing the state, we can say right now, Illinois, I'm looking at this map of Illinois on this map, it says it has 102. If you had 102 youth, like we want 58 youth, and maybe you won't get 102, maybe you'll just get 4. And those 4 youth from one of each of those counties get at least a proclamation saying that reparations is due. They acknowledge reparations is a way to involve the youth, way to involve maybe not just our chapter, like our chapter here in California, but each county to know we looking at you, city council. We looking at you, mayor. Where's the proclamation? When you all come, and I'll talk about that later, who are the mayors right now giving us the proclamation out of 58 counties? Who are they? Because if they hadn't, that's that pressure. And so for me, that is to me an action that we hope for in COBRA. We want to talk about that at the conference, but this is the box. And I hope that makes sense that we will be asking. Massachusetts, it's how many in Massachusetts? I see Massachusetts. It says here on this list that I just put into the chat that Massachusetts has 14. So if there was 14 youth and they were in that city doing that door knocking, and then we go to the city council and ask them for a proclamation, that is the first thing written on paper we would get. So those are the things that we're trying to do on a grassroots level, is to first get those youth, not just get the proclamation. We don't want to just rub heads with the city council and the mayor. We want to do the work with the people, invite them to that city council meeting. So when the youth go in and they speak on the mic, right, we're training them, which should be about the training, everyone show up in them seats. We have asked barbershops, beauty salons, soul foods to come and sit in those seats while they give the proclamation to say to the youth, good job, we are here with you, got reparations. And I think that is our solution, is that it's so many ways to do this, but at least involve the people. So I yield on that, and hopefully people can put their information into what state you're in.
Can I make a comment?
Baba WAUTELLA has his hand up after him.
Thank you. Sister Lita, thank you for reading. And I agree 100% what you just said, but I wanted to add to that and what you're saying is the way to go after it. And the reason why is because you're building up pressure on the government, whether it's local or national, to respond. First, let me back up. When they say something is unconstitutional, remember, this is the gang or the mafia or the criminals talking about their gang rules. We don't have to, we should get locked into their definition of reality. We must define reality for ourselves and force them to accept our definition. And how we do that? We do that by building up movement like we have. They wouldn't even discuss this issue if we had not built this movement that forced them to discuss it. We go to the UN, we go to the Congress, go to all those little avenues that they have. We put our forces out in every spot. But in the end, like with Dr. King, by them being water hosed down in front of the world, by this country who claimed to be so virtuous and so fair, they were forced. Discrimination was legal. It's constitutional.
That's right.
Slavery was legal. It was the people, the soldiers, those who come up from the grassroots who demand our name, that made them, force them to change. And I'm saying today, we must do the same thing. Let's not get, for the people that's just like yourself, the activists, those who are really doing the work, let's not get locked in their definition of reality. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, WAUTELLA, could you please in the chat post the DC and COBRA listserv and in COBRA online so that people can have that information moving forward. And then I see Sister Lisa Quinn is one of the hands that's up.
Yeah, Sister KENNISS' hand is up.
Okay.
Trying to prioritize the parents.
Lisa Quinn's has been up for a while.
I yield my time to Sister Lisa Quinn. Her hand has been up for quite some time.
Yeah.
She's muted.
Peace. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. I really appreciate all the hard work that you all have been doing over the decades. Very steadfast and very disciplined. And it's very admirable to see you all doing work. I just have a few questions / comments that I just don't understand. I do know about NCOBRA. I'm not understanding why international support is not being sought primarily from the United Nations, which said reparations is due to us, as far as I understand. Also, any kind of dignitary who have given an apology. I remember one of the popes gave an apology. So perhaps there could be some momentum on that level where some support can be given. Also, every time that someone does a civil lawsuit, in my mind, that's reparations, because they have said a wrong was done to them and they would like to be compensated in some way, shape, or form. So it seems like reparations happens almost on a daily basis here. I don't understand also those groups, ADOS or any other group who says that we don't need reparations at all. I think that in my mind, they should be dismissive. We just should dismiss them, ask them to sign a contract or a form saying when we do get our reparations, that they will not ask for any of it because they feel that Black people should not get it. I don't see how that they can say that they're the leaders of the whole Black race. We as a Black group have to understand that the continent of Africa needs reparations. They need reparations from the Atlantic slave trade. They need reparations from colonialism. They need reparations from being exploited for all these centuries. So for us to be on this level here and keep fighting on this level, we will never get to those other levels to help people back on the continent. Also, I have one more point to make. The brother Yusuf, I'm glad that he spoke about self-determination. He didn't say that particular phrase, but the way that he broke it down, that was my understanding. I understand that reparations should go in hand with self-determination.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Sister Lisa, Cobra National does have an international commission. It's my understanding that our international commissioners will be in New York at the UN May 25th through the 2nd or something like that. I can't remember, Mama, Sister Kennis, maybe you can be specific about that. So that I just want you to know that there is international work being done. And I believe that there will also be representatives from other countries at the UN dealing with this issue in a week or two as well. And so what you're speaking to is the need in the future for following up to give reports about what is taking place on the international level as well. And that will be done. So thank you so much. Are there any other, Sister Kenneth, you had a comment?
Yes, but I think Sister Anderson had her hand up before mine.
I think we may have answered hers already.
So she just didn't put her hand down?
Right,
No,
right.
Different comment. I have a different comment to make.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and that is about the race-based issue. I know that some in California and maybe some other municipalities, there's the talk of lineage-based reparations, so that people would have to learn what the historical roots of their families are in the United States.
So Wautella is posting in the chat room the information for the DC and Cobra listserv, and there will be information circulated here all this weekend, I'm sure, leading up to a May 25th webinar that will be hosted by the Reparations Education Project and the National Black NBCIT, which is Sister Jessica Owuyor, and they will be addressing the lineage question. So that's May 25th, Thursday, May 25th. I'm sure that Wautella will be posting that again, and we encourage you to register for that so that you can participate in that webinar. National Black Cultural Information Trust. That's what it is. Okay, Sister Candace.
Thank you. A couple of things to the person who asked about the constitutionality question. As we have been lobbying and advocating for passage of HR 40, we got hit with that question more than once. If you send me a email, I will send you the prepared statement that we prepared so that when we were out going from office to office on Capitol Hill, that we had our prepared statement. So if you send, I don't want to belabor it here, but if you send me an email, I'd be happy to send you a copy of that prepared statement. And as far as the sister who talked about ADOS, hashtag ADOS, as Sister Kathleen Anderson said, their position is that reparations must be lineage-based, and the burden of proof is on the potential recipient to prove that they have at least one ancestor who is a descendant of the enslavement era. And Nkoba's position is that lineage-based, as you will see if you dial back in midweek, it's divisive and it's very, very harmful to our people. And what we believe is the better argument is that reparations must be harm-based. And when it's harm-based, we look at all of the different areas where we have been injured. In fact, that all of that harm must be wiped out, totally wiped out. And that would be, the remedies would be defined by us, not those other folk. And that's where we stand on that, as it's harm-based. It has nothing to do with race. And as you see, the Supreme Court in a couple of days is going to rule on probably getting rid of the affirmative action program because it is reverse discrimination. So if you go ahead and send me an email, I will send you a copy of our prepared statement on race-based.
Thank you, Sister Kennis. So if there are, I don't see any other hands raised. And if not, I would like to.
Alita has her hand up, Mama.
Yeah, I was getting ready to circle it back around because I wanted to give Sister Alita an opportunity to speak to the conference that's taking place next month.
Also, Brother Lewis has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I also wanted to just mention, because I am in California, and it is important that since we already have the lineage base, that you all understand where I am and where I sit with that, being on this panel. And so I'm with NCOBRA, totally. But because we cannot ignore our people, right? If they're saying they're going to give a dollar amount, we already know it. It's important that we've had on Wednesdays a call. Every Wednesday, we haven't had it recently because we've been trying to get the convention together. So people can call, come onto our Zoom, and also not just learn about our principles of what we want for NCOBRA, which is definitely for those 5 areas of injuries. But also we teach people how to find their lineage. We do not ignore that. And so how we do that is there is a database that we use on our screen, just like we're doing right now. I pull it up. It's from Salt Lake City, Utah. They have their own database where I show people how to put their names of their ancestor, the last one. These are men in the barbershop. These are people that are homeless. They can find the person that's connected to them easily. So we are not only politically educating them, but we're telling them this shouldn't be the only thing you should want and only reason. So it's a learning tool. Not only are we allowing them to become able to get this California reparations, we're not, but we're telling them why it's important, more so to have the legacy of what we're longing for on this call when it comes to NCOBRA, which is, that means still my youth, my 2 young people should go to college for free since I live here in California. That's not a part of this package. My people who are homeless in Oakland, 50,000 have been pushed out of Oakland, has been displaced because of gentrification. They should have a home. That's not a part of it. So, all those points we get to say, because not only are we dealing with the situation, which is true, this is California reparations, and that's how the state's doing it. And that's why we are eloquent to tell that political education in the community. We have to not ignore that situation, that's been done. We didn't ask for that, and NCOBRA didn't ask for that to be that way. But as living in California, we want you to know, we'll teach you, but be members of NCOBRA, because we know it doesn't give all the solutions, and we fight up against that. Those solutions are not the only answer. So I did want to mention that, because in this whole thing of some of the cities that you all come from, Illinois, there's 102 counties. That means we should be organizing for those 102 counties. Massachusetts, there's 42 counties. We can organize, and I'm hoping people will come to California June 22nd to 25th, because we are going to talk about how do you do that? How could you have in your city or state what we're doing with the young people easily? The first thing, as NCOBRA members for 34 years, I am very grateful and honored to be about that type of, longevity, right? Now, there's no other groups in reparations that have done that. You all have done that. And to teach that to the young people, all these organizations that are coming, we must show them why these elders are eloquent, need to be listened to, and engage with them, not fight, but debate with them on
Mhm.
why this is important.
That's right.
We have to see that the circle, it's called democratic processes, it's called round robin. I teach a class called University Symphonetas, University Without Walls. It's called US Social Forum. It's called what we did with the Black Radical Congress when I was a youth representative on that stage, democratic process. And we cannot be afraid to have these conversations. That is the problem right now with our youth have felt like they only learn about our culture in their university, which is true because we don't take the schools anymore. But we have an opportunity now to be there together intergenerationally, have the debate and love where they would want to be a part of us and be a part of also this organizing together. So this is an invitation. Yes, please come to the NCOBRA convention, 22nd to the 25th. And it's going to be at the Oakland Marriott. I did put the invite in here as far as to register, but I'll put it in again. And it means that you all will have from the 22nd, which is Thursday, flying into this Oakland Marriott Hotel, coming to the opening on Friday, which would start with just the members meeting, right? How you all usually have the members meeting. And then right in the afternoon, hearing from our elder who's in California and Los Angeles to say some words, because we are using the title, honoring our ancestors, continuing the legacy. Woo, 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 bop, 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 we say in some spaces. That is important to squash the fizzle out, all these fighting, battling, who's got the reparations juice and guru stuff. And so we'll be able to say, hey, we're talking about our ancestors, come learn. And so when they come in this space, in the opening ceremony, we pour the libations like you always have taught in 34 years to do, someone locally that's going to be doing that. We have the drummers that are well known at the Malanga Art Center here in Oakland to drum. And then you're going to hear from the potential NCOBRA members that I have personally helped to get their group together, my group, my youth program. And those groups are in Marin City, where Chokwe, what is his name? Not Baba Hannibal, where some of the Black Panthers were in Marin City. First, I can't think of Tupac's family, right? They were in those projects. They did their own listening projects. They're going to be introducing themselves. You're going to hear from Richmond, where I live, where the refinery is here, where the first Black boy was killed before the Black Panthers started. That group is going to be here. Vallejo, they're going to be here. So you'll meet them in the opening. Then we're going out to dinner. And then Saturday, we have the workshops in the morning. Then we walk to a barbecue soul food restaurants because almost all Black restaurants are closed in the Bay Area, meaning this is where we're at with reparations for me. They're taking food away, those spots that used to be known. We're going to walk to those places during lunch and dinner. And then we're going to have that night for a gala. We're going to be sitting with holy ground people. I mean, Huey Newton's wife, Frederica Newton. We're going to be in the Huey Newton Foundation building. It's a research center. Walking, it's 2 blocks away from the Oakland Marriott, where we'll be staying, and we'll go there. And then after we do those workshops and have a fishbowl before the gala, the next day, you're going to learn about this process called People's Movement Assembly, where we will do something different. It's about learning and hearing from everyone, not just those people who are at the workshop. So I'll leave it at that. But if you want to look up People's Movement Assemblies, that's the process. And it makes everyone feel safe. It's about trust. And I think it's time that we trust each other, hear from more than a couple of voices. If there's a 2-year-old, that person can talk. If it's a retired judge, 94, they can talk. And this has really happened. I had 5-year-olds with an elder that was 86. He was a retired judge. They all got to speak because it's a circle. It's not popcorning. It's not about who's most eloquent. That's what's happened with us, is that we only allow those to talk that are more eloquent or more political or more professors. We need to hear from everyone in the room. And then when we vote together with the red or green paper, guess what? We come out with actions, and guess what everyone's going to do on that ending when we do the closing? We will be signing petitions in a line, each petition action-oriented. Closing out, before you get on your airplane to go back home, you're going to be signing petitions on things we've all voted for, almost in a processes to say we are united and we can come up with something instead of fighting and having division. We can be united. So I hope I gave the pitch right. And I'll give more. Please go to the link that's going to be in the chat. Thank you for letting me
Thank you so much, Sister Aleta. And one other thing I'd like to add, registration for the conference allows you, as becoming a member, to engage in the voting process for the decision making for NCOBRA. And so with that, Brother Kelechi, you got the baton.
I think actually a person who is just coming in as a new member, I think there's a 30-day waiting. Right now there's 60 days. I think they want to change it to a 30-day waiting period before people are able to vote.
Oh, that's right. And yeah, you're right, because we're only a couple of weeks away. And thank you very much for that reminder.
Yeah, bro. And there was a question that was asked much earlier. So I'm just going to address it. It says, the question is, how can you get a copy of the recording of this program for others, to share with others? This is actually being live streamed on YouTube. So you can find it on YouTube. You can either go to United Black Community's YouTube page, just search United Black Community. You'll see the video there, or you can search United Black Community Facebook page, or you can just search KUZALIWA 2023 on YouTube, and you'll find the video to share with others. And we have a brother who I think he's been raising his hand, but he's not raising electronically, so we can't see him as well. Brother Lewis, I think he's been trying to speak for some time. Can you unmute yourself, Baba? You're still muted, so you have to unmute yourself.
Greetings from Belize, and thank you, and Cobra. I have to tell you that I was on the streets of Oakland soapboxing in the 70s. Marcus Garvey's 54 stanzas of the Declaration of Rights of the Negro People. I created an organization in Oakland called Good as Gold Incorporated. It was not a lot of people that was ready to stand up with me, so many times it was just me on a street corner on top of my box, and I put it back in my car and go home after I'm finished. Well, I left Oakland in 1996, and I came back to my country because there is a particular element of our struggle that is wiped out. And we're talking millions, hundreds of millions of people in the Americas, the Caribbean. And they are wiped out with this colonial decree or established law that said Africans and African descendant was illegal. And there was a particular judge, British judge called Sisnet, that made that declaration and created that controversy that is still standing in our region today. We're trying to erase it right now, including myself. And I have to say, when I left Oakland, I came back to Belize, and with a group of Pan-Africans, we created the organization called the Central American Black Organization. And we're 7 countries today. We're still being pressured. My life has been attempted a couple of times in my own country and in a foreign country. But what I'm here today and what I'm listening from you, as my family, I say to you, we need to get NCOBRA's message wider. We need to get NCOBRA's educational acumen wider. What I hear, I am delighted, because I was the protege for Dr. Stewart, who completed Evers' journey to establish that school that exists in New York. Well, he mentored me, and he was the most prolific Garveyite that I know. Economist, historian, and also an elected official that was booted out by the American electoral process. So we know we have done things that can be duplicated but we're not duplicating them fast enough. The other thing that I would like to mention, I held the position as the Education Secretary for Latin America for 4 consecutive 2-year terms. And in those 8 years, I was able to collaborate with universities in the region to use our young students to build the cadre of legal minds, of natural law minds, of understanding who we are as a human, a living, breathing, flesh and blood human. I believe that that is one of the parts that we have not included so far in the elements that we are using, and it's actually an integral part, because once you take that natural law and put it into full effect, we only have 3 laws that we are doing: cause no harm to yourself, do no harm to nobody else, and cause no destruction to nobody else's private property. And if we can keep the European to those laws and the order that comes behind those, I believe we have another incredible vehicle at our disposal. At this very moment, as we speak in my own country, I am using Marcus Garvey's Declaration of Rights of the Negro People of the World to establish our own registration of certain private properties or vehicles or homes or children, stuff like that. And the other piece that I'm just going to throw out, because we're not strong in it yet, is the fact that the European has created a dual system. From the time they did the Magna Carta, they were creating this duality because they wanted to make sure we would not rise up and just wipe them all out. So they decided to put certain things inside of the legal process that is there, but we don't know the ropes of these things. And in some of it is the way we can collect on what is owed to us. I will be able to share some information after, because I don't want to talk much more. I want to just continue to listen to you guys, because you guys are giving me energy that I needed. You're putting wind in my sail that I needed to have right now. So I'm going to be quiet. And at the next point, if you give me a space where I can share certain documents with you guys, which will include the information that shows you the kind of correspondence that Marcus Garvey had with the League of Nations even before the United Nations was created. And those documents are in their archives, but they will never let us know they're there. Well, we have a group that has found this archival spot, and we're pulling these pieces out slowly because they destroy our computers. I'll tell you what they're doing with us right now. We get into that space, and that computer that we use for that particular research will not serve us much longer after we come out. It's blue screen.
Brother Lewis, I would like to suggest to you that you put your contact information in the chat, and I will pass that on to our international commission.
I will do that.
International commission co-chairs, and they can then plug you into the international listservs so that you can share that information.
I am more than grateful. I
so
pass my time to the next person. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Brother Kalechi, I think we're at the end.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up Baba and Mamu. He had a statement he wanted to make, so I'm gonna bring him on.
Yeah, I think I made part of it earlier. I just wanted to be on record for the United Black community that, you know, we thank in Cobra for all the years in service that they have given our people on this fight for reparations. And Cobra's been on the front lines for as far as I can remember. I can remember when Amari Obadeli first came up with the thought of reparations, because I was in the Republic of New Africa at the time here in DC. And we give thanks for those who have paved the way. I remember hearing this discussion where it says that the ancestors know the road because they built it. So Wautella, you mentioned a lot of the great ancestors, and Mario Badella, Chokwe Lumumba, Baba Ahmed Obafemi, man, brothers. Hey, these were some warriors. Queen Mother, Dorothy Lewis, and Mama Nee, and and I know there's many more. Brother Hannibal, man, the soldiers. Oh my God, man. So look, just give thanks to Cobra for
Thank you.
leading the way, man. I mean, it's important, and I was so pleased that we started our new chapter in DC, and I became a member. I got my youngest son to become a member. So, and there's others I got to get. They a little leaning on the fence on me, but we got to get them on board. So that's what I wanted to share. And also, I hope we can get together again and go over these tasks that we could send out to the community. I think we've had 25 participants on board. And I know there are many, many more people should have been on board with us tonight. But we have to at least send out the information to them about what came out of this very, very valuable, valid conference here. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mamo.
Yes.
Dr. Sana Baba. So, okay, so I'm just to close out with the with an announcement before we go, unless Mama KIBIBI has something else she wants to add.
Looks like Mama Tendai has her
Mama
hand.
Tendai, okay. Go ahead, Mama. Can you?
I was just, yes, okay, I'm here. And I took my hand down before because you all addressed some of the things that I was concerned about. But I basically really just wanted to remind folk of what Baba Wautella said in the beginning. And that is that the definition of reparations is our own. We must define that. And to encourage us to do that, and to say that when you do send this link out, since it will be on YouTube, that if you would send it out also in the DC and Cobra listserv, so that we can forward it to other groups and organizations to make sure that they do see it. And I do want to let the brother in Belize know that he got a bunch of Garveyites already on here. Thank you.
No doubt.
All right.
Santa Sana, Mama.
All right. Peace, everybody. And of course, I'm going to include this. It will be part of our river walk because we're all saying the same thing. We've all heard it. You know, our river walk theme this year is power forward, call upon our ancestors. And that's what we're having on June the 10th. So I'll make sure that we include this information for all of those who attend the river walk as well. Okay. All right. Peace, everybody.
Thank you.
Santa Sana, Mama.
Thank you all. Appreciate you all.
So with one announcement. So United Black Community, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the organizational group that puts this conference together every year in honor of Brother Malcolm, and we feature various aspects, focus on various positions and platforms that Brother Malcolm was talking about, was working with, was building, was focused on. And United Black Community we're based in the Washington, D.C. area. We are primarily responsible for organizing the Kwanzaa celebrations that happen in the D.C. area, putting out the Kwanzaa calendar and many other things. Throughout the year, we have forums every month. Usually it's on the third Friday of the month. KUZALIWA is different. KUZALIWA we do on the Saturday closest to Brother Malcolm's birthday. But next month, we're back to our regular forums. And next month, we're going to have the forum on economic blueprint for Black power, how to effectively utilize economic resources that we have to create Black power. So that's going to be virtual. So look out for that. And it's going to be on the third Friday of June, which is June 16th. So definitely look out for that. I want you all to come through and share, because all this is connected, right?
Yes.
It's all very much connected.
Mhm.
So I want you all to come back for that. And of course, we have these workshops every month on the third Friday of the month. And I may not have introduced myself. I'm Brother Kelechi Agwem. I'm one of the members of the United Black Community. We also have Bobby Mamu, who is one of our members. We have several members in the community, and trying to see who's on right now. Bobby, let me see who we got on there. Baba Kamal, he normally starts us out at the beginning of the year, and actually we were talking about the effect of AI, and AI is everywhere. Everyone's talking about AI. Brother Kamal's been telling us about AI and preparing us for what's coming for probably 10 years. So if you've been listening to his lectures, you already know what's going on with AI. And of course, Barbara Safiq is one of our founder members of United Black Community. So you can go to United Black Community's Facebook page, and you can see a lot of previous workshops, previous KUZALIWA from previous years, and many activities, including some Kwanzaa programs. You can also see that on the United Black Community Facebook page and our YouTube page as well. But I want to thank you all for joining us. Bobby Mamu, you have any closing words for us?
Closing words, again, thanks for everyone's participation, and hopefully we can get together before June, the next forum, and come up with those tasks. I think that's very, very important, and begin to disseminate that task throughout the country.
Yebo.
Yes.
Baba WAUTELLA, Mama KIBIBI, anything, any final?
Thank you very much for allowing us to have this forum.
Right. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for this. We appreciate it.
Yebo.
Thank you all too.
Absolutely. Thank you for all the work that you do, and we're square behind you. We're with you. We're by your side and behind you. Yeah, bro. Sana. All right, everyone. Everyone have a good evening, and thank you all for joining us. And please go to the YouTube, search on YouTube, share with folks, send it through email. It's real simple. If you search KUZALIWA 2023, it'll come up on YouTube, or go to the YouTube page, share it. We can quadruple the audience by sharing it with our email servers or whatever means of communication we use to share information. Please share this, and hopefully you can also help drive folks to be part of the conference as well, because the conference is very much featured in the video.
Yes.
Yeah, Bo. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.